So we appreciate you guys being with us today. I want to introduce you to Jamie Jackson, a friend of mine. We've been working together for a while. This is, I don't know how many briefings you've done on this, Jamie, where we're working with the federal government to help with flexible workspace as a service, right? So there you go. So I appreciate you being with us. Well, welcome. We also want to welcome all the folks that are here. Oh my goodness, this is a hot topic. We have a ton of folks that have asked to be involved in this from the Army, EPA, HRSA. We have folks. We actually have some questions from TSA and DHS. So we make sure we get those to you. If you have any questions, we'll get to how you can participate in that. I'm going to give you an introduction to Jamie and who he is, how long he's been doing this world, because he's got some really good case studies for us today. Briefing controls, tell you how you can communicate with us, federal initiatives, agency issues and challenges. A lot of that revolves around just how the workspace is evolving. The COVID impact, in case you didn't know, we're dealing with a pandemic. I can't imagine that I'll tell you what, it's the first time I heard of that yesterday, Jamie. To get to your information back and forth, as well as some recommended action steps. In fact, we have a pilot that GSA's asked us to help you with. So, best briefing ever. If I receive factual information, only factual information here, Jamie. Carrie, I can improve the workspace capabilities in cost-efficient manner. Love that idea. Safana, what's the general trend, RE space post-pandemic? Love that. Robert, how I can gain perspective on how other bureaus are reacting to the new work climate post-pandemic. A lot of post-pandemic stuff here. Lawrence from C. Sosa, a diagram of this process can be given out. We'll absolutely help you with that. Right, Jamie?
Mm-hmm.
And Jennifer, no one asked me any questions. I love that. Executive Office of the President. Don't ask me any questions. Jennifer, if we ask any questions, they're not directed to you. How about that? Michael from Department of State. I can get my bureau to adopt any time-saving measures for our office lease fit-out project. Wow, that's a good one, right, Jamie? Jennifer from HHS. I can walk away with steps I can take to plan for our own organization space requirements. Absolutely. That's the whole idea. You get to be able to create your own. Russell from EPA, it discusses costs. We'll talk a little bit about that. Duran, it provides specific information we can use immediately. Immediately, Jamie. Nothing later. Gary from the VA, we can find a way to fast contracting. Boy, oh boy, do I wish we had a way to do that as easy as you want to do it, Gary. Patricia here, please address this. Provision for remote workers to have easy access for in-office, fully equipped desk, phone, copier, and space. Does it get any more of a softball question than that for you? Is that right, Jamie?
That's right.
Yeah, that's right. That's where you live. Stephanie from FMC. If there any information on how agencies decrease the footprints will affect multi-year contracts already been signed. Wow, that is right in your space again, Jamie. James from DOJ. Is there a method where agencies can scale up and down usage and still have dedicated space? We can't share space with commercial companies. Wow. This is a big issue, isn't it? Isn't it?
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that exact issue today.
That's right. We're going to talk about that because a lot of times, especially Department of Justice, you can't be sharing that space with commercial spaces. So, and that's one of the things we will address. Erica, address how lease renewal with telework space requirements. Exactly. Darlene from HUD, how can agencies be more supportive of flexible workspace requirements? That's a great question. How can we? First of all, we got to have access to it, right, Jamie? And you got to know what it is. There's a lot of folks that don't. And Linda from EPA, is this anticipated to be rolled out across all federal agencies? Boy, if that isn't the question of the day, love that. So we will do our best to answer all those, right, Jamie?
Mm-hmm.
That's right. So session docs, briefing presentation, GSA co-working links and contacts, and the FEMA white paper. We are providing you a white paper that was written by FEMA. And because FEMA has situations just like this, and they've been doing it for years, and you've actually were part of that. You were written about in that white paper. And just so everybody knows, This event is not affiliated or endorsed by GSA or any other agency, and this allows you, government personnel, to communicate with us because it's not an endorsement or commitment to purchase from any vendor. So there you go. GSA gives that to us, and we do that every time we do a briefing. So briefing controls. If you live under a rock and you have no idea how Zoom works, go up to the top. You can use that little doodah there, and you can make us bigger or smaller. And if you'd like to participate, it is easy. You can throw things in the chat. We prefer, however, if you're going to ask questions, raise your hand, pop it in the Q&A, or if it's something you don't want everybody and their mother to know, Jay Jackson at Metro Office 10, right? MetroOffice.com. And I promise you, he will answer questions as needed. So the first thing we want to do is say, why in the world did you guys decide to join us today? Are you a federal employee and want to learn about flexible workspace and how you can have a flexible workspace, right? Options. I'm working on the workspace plan for my agency. There are people that are tasked with that. I handle real estate transaction leases. I'm an HR and responsible for hiring and retention. Hey, we got an HR problem going on, don't we, Jamie? Yes. And you manage facilities, or my boss made me come. You can answer as many as you want, and somebody's got to be a Weisenheimer and choose that last one. Don't leave that one hanging all by itself. So there you go. So while you're doing that, I'm going to introduce you to Jamie Jackson. Metro Offices has been servicing the federal government for years, right? And you have a lot of experience in a lot of the topics we're going to be talking about today. And Metro Federal is a sub of that, and it's developed specifically with a partnership with court. So tell us how that happened. And we really appreciate you sharing this information with us today. Go ahead, Jamie.
All right. Thank you, Dave. Well, thank you, everybody, for coming to our briefing. Let me just tell you just a little bit about Metro Offices. We're a private, woman-owned company running an executive office suite of offices in the metropolitan Washington area. And we've been doing it. We just finished our 33rd year. So we're woman-owned. We're deep experience in executive office space. But most important for you on here today, over the last 11 years, we've done 53 million in contracts of the service that we're going to talk about today. And we went out and got a partner, and you'll understand why in just a few minutes. And the partner we chose is Court Furniture. Court is the largest rental facility in the world. They've been in business for 25 years. They have a great suite of solutions, and they're owned by the Warren Buffett, Berkshire Hathaway series of companies. So you'll see why Metro and Court have come together with this offer. All right. Are you going to do this poll?
I am going to do this poll. So this is the question. The next poll is, what is your biggest workspace issue? My biggest workspace is, first of all, understanding what the heck flexible workspace means, because that's not a thing that you 1 to 5 year workspace plan. A lot of folks have issues with that one. Teleworking, managing traditional lease requirements over 5 years. And so this is what's so amazing, because when we're doing this, by the way, we collect this information so that we can provide this back to GSA, because GSA is asking for agencies to do a pilot with. That's what they're asking for. So we're taking this back up to GSA so that we can do this. They're not sure what to do about it. You're not sure what to do about it, but there's solutions that have been in play for years. As Jamie said, now $53 million is no joke when it comes to doing contracts with the federal government. That's just federal government work, right? That's what you're talking about. You've done a lot more work outside of that, but just $53 million in the last 11 years, right?
Yep.
And that is servicing federal agencies, multiple federal agencies with a plan just like this. So that's why we're doing this. So go ahead and answer. Excuse me. Anybody? So you got another 5, 4, 3. We got 15. We only have 46% participation. I did have a chat from Angel, who said her favorite vacation place is Greece. We love that. And Alaska from Duran. Love it. So anyway, appreciate that. So 19. So we're 59%. Let's get another couple in here. And 5, 4, 3, 2, one, and all right, we'll do it that way. So here we got, Jamie, let's take a look. Understanding what flexible workspace means. So we're going to do that right now. We're going to get into that. And look at this, Jamie. 53% have got to figure out the 1 to 5 year plan. And the reason for that is things have changed and they don't know what their agency's 1 to 5 year plan should even be. And guess what? Some of that should be teleworking, shouldn't it, Jamie?
Well, it should be flexible workspace. Yeah.
That's exactly right. So tell us, what in the world is this flexible workspace and why it exists, right?
Okay, so why a flexible workspace? C.B. Richard Ellis, in their paper that came out in February, had this great quote which said, "The need for agility has never been greater, and the workforce behaviors have been transformed during the pandemic and likely will never return to pre-pandemic norms."
Yep.
Even a better quote is what went out to all the agencies in June of last year from ONB, OPM, et cetera, when they said every agency's long-term solution should have as much flexibility as possible. So all of you on this call who are working on your post-pandemic real estate solution, you need to put as much flexibility in that solution as possible. And we're going to present to you one to consider as you develop that process. Now, why do agencies need flexibility? These are the ones that we have heard from the agencies. One, because your mission is continuing to change. It used to be you had the same mission for 10 years. It's not the case anymore. Somebody's on here from HR, hiring new talent. They are immediately asking, how do I work? Where do I work, et cetera. Swing space for expansion, reduction, or move to a different location. Here's a good one. Project task force. If you're going to put together a project and you're going to bring people from different areas of your agency, don't go out and lease 10-year space for that and buy furniture and all that sort of stuff. We can do it for you for exactly the term that you're going to need that project. Reduction of real estate costs. That's going to become big. The government wants to reduce their real estate costs. So one of the ways is to add flexibility. Diversify your real estate portfolio, just like your bond portfolio. Don't put all your eggs in long-term 10-year deals. Look at some flexible space also. There is a need for 10-year space, but there's also a need for 1 to 5 year space. And last one, employee retention, which every one of these briefings that Dave and I do, it's always a question of how can I work from home, or how can I only go to the office 3 days a week? A lot of employee retention issues.
Yep. And what I love about this, and you mentioned the projects and task force, we can learn a lot from folks. When we first started talking about it, was pre-pandemic, right? And we were already engaging with GSA on this, and it was a fraction. And then the pandemic hits and boom, everything blows up in every aspect of real estate, and using the best practices that FEMA has identified as best practices for you so that you can get through that. So the other part we did, and we have talked to Chuck. I don't know if you know Chuck Hardy or not. He's the acting chief architect of GSA. And we talked to him multiple times, and this is one of the things that we're doing is we're collecting this information to provide it back to GSA, as well as making sure that you have access to a pilot. He's looking for agencies to do a pilot. So that's what we're doing. We're collecting this so we can take it right back to him and say, we want to do a pilot, and we would not figure out a 1 to 5 year deal. We want to do a pilot because there's some things you can do now for shorter range as well. And we're going to talk about that as well. But past initiatives allowed the government to operate during the pandemic as telework was mandated, right? You had to do it.
That was a big one for the government. They were able to continue to work during the pandemic because they had developed the technology and the processes to be able to do so. But what's really important that Chuck points out is the last two bullets. the government will reduce its real estate footprint. No question about that. And lastly, there will be different types of real estate solutions and workspace designs. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is one of those different types of solutions.
Yep.
So I love this concept that C.B. Richard Ellis coined, core plus flex. Core meaning part of your strategy, just like you've been doing, the 10-year GSA long-term lease, combined with adding flexible office space agreements into your portfolio. And they happen to have given an example in this paper that they put out of a major government contractor that is a customer of C.B. Richard Ellis. And this contracting company used Core plus Flex. And they found three great advantages to doing this: speed to market, which is what we bring; reduced demand on capital resources. Agencies don't put up the money, we put up the money; and the ability to grow and reduce our footprint. And we're going to show you how our solution has tremendous flexibility. They went on to say that this contractor, by using Core plus Flex, reduced his real estate costs 15%. And that is a huge number when you think about the millions that people are paying for real estate costs today.
Yep. And that's in line with what FEMA experienced too.
That's correct. That's
right?
Exactly correct.
So
I love this picture, and this is going to be one of the major things that you're going to walk away from this briefing. And that is, people say there are 7 types of workspaces that an agency could have. To the far left, we have what we're calling core, and that's your 10-year fixed GSA schedule where you build it out exactly like you want it, you equip it and staff it and operate it. That's not going away. What's going away is that's not going to be the only solution you have. To the far right in this picture, we have 3 solutions. And if you ask most of the people on this call today, well, what is flexibility? What are the types of flexibility? This is what people would tell you. Co-working relationships, like in a WeWork or a Metro or a Regis, where you buy the right to be able to use so many hours a month at a desk or a meeting room, or workplace on demand, where you're able to reserve by the hour, the day, or by the month a meeting room or a workspace. Or finally, at the far right, telework, which has become a huge use of flexible workspace today. The recent GSA IDIQ contract addressed co-working memberships and workplace on demand. And it's designed to give agencies the ability, when they go outside of their market area, to be able to have a place to work. As someone asked in the question, the big issue that we're hearing from people is we can't go in and operate inside a commercial facility. We need one that's dedicated to agencies. What we want to talk about today is these 2, turnkey workspace and short-term workspace, where there is a dedicated space built out, equipped, and run for the agency at 5 years or less. And that, in our opinion, is what is one of the solutions. As Chuck Hardy said earlier, there will be different types of real estate solutions and workspace designs. That's what we want to talk about today.
And that's the core plus flex.
The core plus flex
concept, right? So, and I tell you what, the more we talk to different agencies and the more we gather information through briefings and you talking with folks afterwards, right? So you're talking with folks afterwards saying, hey, does this qualify as a potential pilot? What would it look like? So that when you're taking that up to GSA, you're saying this is what it looks like. You have your traditional space. You're always, I don't think we're ever going to get away from telework. Do you think so? Like
no,
completely?
I do not. I
don't think so. I think that and by the way, we were doing virtual before it was cool with COVID. When we were doing GovBrief stuff, we were doing it virtually, and now we're all virtually. We're so better connected virtually. We have the capacity to be able to do things that we could not do before, between the processes that have been in place as well as the preparations for that. So let's talk about this.
So
this
one of your
Go ahead.
questions that somebody on this call today asked was, how could I provide space with all the equipment and the furniture, et cetera?
That's exactly right.
That's exactly what we provide.
And that's why it is the best. That's the best softball you've ever had as far as a briefing question.
In any of these briefings.
That's right.
We provide a turnkey facility, including furniture, utilities, communications, IT services, and all related infrastructure, and a support staff under a services contract. And our niche is 1 to 5 year term. So we go out and we build it exactly like you want it, and we run it exactly like you want us to run it.
And this happens. So one is, and you may talk about this in a little bit, but I'll set it up as kind of a setup for you. When you first did this, they were asking for 18 months. There's no 18-month anything lease with GSA, period. There was nothing. And that, who was it that was it VA that was asking for that?
It was VA.
It was VA. So VA was asking for that. And this is where it exposed the gap of 1 to 5 years. And now just what magnified that gap is you have a lot of office. You're not even open yet in DC. You're still not open in DC, right? Some of them have some of the have to be in offices in some aspects, or you have different agencies doing different things, right? But every one of them now is focusing on that gap. And this is what we're trying to fill, right, Jamie?
Exactly.
So let's talk about that. Well, you mentioned your relationship with court. What does that mean? How does that work?
Well, that's a great question. The reason we wanted court as our partner is because when they bring to us furniture as a service, what that means is, if you call us today and say we need 25 more seats, we're going to have 25 more seats there within 2 weeks. If you tell us you want to reduce the number of people, we're going to reduce the seat. If you tell us I need a different configuration, we've had clients that started with 2 divisions and then went to 4 divisions. We had to completely redo the configuration of the furniture. And we do all that very quickly. So our solution, Metro Court solution, is continuous flexibility. It's not just flexibility on the term of the engagement, it's flexibility throughout the engagement.
And you have, and what I love about this is you have the FEMA case study, which is in the white paper, right? FEMA wrote the white paper. You didn't write that white paper, right?
Yeah, this is a good, we're going to give you 2 case studies today, and we've got more, but we just picked these 2. The first one was FEMA up in New Jersey. And we all remember what Hurricane Sandy did to New Jersey, et cetera. FEMA had a problem, and they were losing their space in 30 days. And the GSA could not find them any short-term space. So they came to us, and we actually worked with the GSA on this solution. And in 30 days from the date of the contract, we moved in 240 people, and we built it exactly the way they wanted it. And FEMA got immediate workspace, and they got tremendous real estate costs. And they were so pleased with our solution that, as Dave said, they wrote their own white paper. We didn't ask them to do it. They wrote their own. And you'll have the opportunity to pull that white paper down. And somebody asked about cost. FEMA did a great cost comparison of our solution to a typical GSA deal. And I think you'll find it very, very interesting to read.
And what I love about it, there's so many people that can come on and talk about, hey, we do this better than anybody, whatever. We've all heard it, right? So in this instance, look at what FEMA had to say, because there is no better example of what the best practices are, by the way. The idea is, hey, This is not a typical contract, right? One contract with options spanning 2 years and 2 months. That falls smack right in the middle of that 1 to 5 year gap. And it also wound up trailing on and trailing off. And eventually they got put into a GSA facility that was full time, right?
They eventually went to a GSA long-term lease facility, which is exactly what they should have done, what was left. But the work that was done in New Jersey was finished, and it turned out to be a great solution.
Yep.
The next slide, I think, go to the next slide.
Yep.
The VA, I know there's some people on here from the VA. We've done a lot of work for the VA, but I picked one that I thought was very apropos for this group. They came to us and they needed to form 2 new departments, TAC, which is a contracting unit, and OI&T, which is their technology group.
Wait a minute, Jamie, why did they have to do that?
Because the federal government had given the VA a substantial amount of money. Congress, and told them that they wanted them to build more hospitals, more clinics, et cetera. And so it had to be designed and equipped. So we didn't even know where Eatontown, New Jersey was, but they called us. We went up there, we made a solution to them, and we never had a contract longer than 1.5 years with 2 6-month options. And the contract went over 10 years, and they just finished moving into a long-term GSA lease in exactly the facility that we had them in. But during that 10 years, we provided swing space to them. We provided scalability to them up and down on a number of people. We configured the space every time they restructured the group that was working there. And at the end of the contract, they moved, as we said, into a long-term GSA lease. And we're very pleased to provide to you in the next slide our CPARS evaluation. We can give you a bunch of them, but because they were exceptional. But the last CPARS evaluation, but John Adamitis, a contracting officer, the last quote, "Given what I know today about the contractor's ability to perform in accordance with this contract, I would highly recommend Metro for similar requirements in the future." And when we open it up for questions, I'll answer any other questions you want on this. But this is a great study of how we worked with the VA over a 10-year period to literally build an organization and eventually move them into a GSA facility.
And I want to preface it so everybody can hear, because I want you to ask questions, Jamie. Obviously, you can ask as many questions you want. But one of these pieces revolves around the initial contract being 18 months with 6-month extensions, right? That's what you said.
That's correct.
And that means that there's significant risk on your part that the government, because the government can terminate, right? They can terminate that for lack of funding. And what happens is the only reason it started to get to a place, it got to be 7 years, right, into that process. And I know the guy that was actually doing this at VA, Tony Costa, who's no longer there, but he wound up, he's like, hey, we need to examine all these leases, right? And there's some leases within that if it's a 7-year lease, that's a long lease, right? And here we had one that was just keeping going. And because of the cost structure that was built in and your ability to flex up and flex down, it was cost savings. But legally, they said, we've got to transition this to a GSA lease legally, because GSA is the only one that has the authority to have a lease that long, right, Jamie?
Yeah, yes. We actually never had a lease 7 years. We kept doing 1.5-year leases with 6-month options, and then we would do it over again. But they kept changing. Their business model kept changing, which is what's going to happen in the future. That's the
exactly right
that people need. For 60 or 70% of your agency's needs, it isn't going to change. but 30 or 40% of your agency needs is going to continue to change. And that's why our solution helps with the flexibility. The only amount of money they ever had to go and ask for approval in their annual budget is for that year's payments to us, because we put up all the rest of the money. They don't have to buy anything, get capital improvements, et cetera. So it works out to be a great deal for VA and for us.
Exactly. And there's so much about this. A lot of folks that are here, this is the first time you're hearing about this, because back when they were doing it, it wasn't 30 to 40% of the agency. It was only like 5% of the agency that would require that. But because of what has happened over the past 2.5 years, we are now in a situation where this is a significant impact. Instead of 5%, it's 30 to 40% of the impact on your agencies, which is why you're here. You're here because you're trying to figure out what that 1 to 5 year space looks like. And there isn't a way to do it the way that you want. And here's the situation. In every instance that you've done this, Jamie, you've gone through this process. And this is an unsolicited proposal process because there is no mechanism. There's no IDIQ. There's no blanket purchase agreement. There's no GSA contract or GSA process for leasing to do this. And this is why we are collecting this information and providing pilots for you to take the GSA to say, look, here's a potential pilot. It goes through the process so that GSA is involved in this process so that they can come up with the IDIQ and blanket purchase agreements to help the agencies at the level they need to be helped. That's the design.
Dave, I just want to correct one thing you said.
Yep.
The VA deal started as an IDIQ.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Once the IDIQ ended, this is the process that we used, an unsolicited proposal. And we submitted to them. Then we get a sole source justification and approval of the approval. I really believe at some point the GSA is going to establish a GSA schedule of 1 to 5 years. But until we get there, this is the process that we will use. Now, before I answer all the questions or any people have, go to the next slide. I just want to show you that this quote that JLL, Jones Lang LaSalle, put 30% of all office space will be consumed flexibly by 2030. The only reason that date is out to 2030 is because leases are going to be maturing between now and then, and people are going to be converting a piece of their business from long-term leases to medium to 1 to 5 year leases with flexibility. But we firmly believe that this is in the ballpark. 30% plus or minus of office space in the future will be flexibly.
And that I think you're right. Everything we've talked about with every other agency is because of the necessity for scaling up and down, especially when it comes to that dedicated space. Because that's what you did, right? You did the dedicated space.
That's right. We give them dedicated space. Now, just to recap, our solution has past federal experience. We have a turnkey solution. It's everything you need. We allow for continuous flexibility. So you don't know day one what you're going to look like year 4 or year 3.
You don't have to either.
We have the ability to change with you. We'll give you a quick response. It's a services contract. It's all it is. It's a services contract, and you have one vendor, and that's us, one throat to choke. So we can work with you to manage this solution as you keep your business, your agency keeps changing over the next 5 years.
Yep. And because you've done it, so here, just a quick recap. Here's what we would say: managing your workspace requirements. A couple of things that are recommendations. Number one, if you have something that's less than 1 year, GSA has the IDIQ to do that, right, Jamie?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
And you can use that to access folks like Metro offices, spaces here in DC. You can use it to access other companies all over the country. So that you can pop in, pop out as you need it, right? Less than 1 year. That's one day to 1 year. the gap here that we're looking at is 1 to 5 year solution. And if you want to engage the agencies, Jamie can connect you to John Adamitis with the VA. He'll be glad to talk about it, right, Jamie?
Yes.
Yep. And also looking at what FEMA has done. Do yourself a favor, schedule your needs assessment and see if you qualify, or if you wanted to talk about going to GSA, we can help you prep for that, help prep procurement and the whole process to take you up to GSA with an unsolicited proposal to say, here's what we're doing, keeping GSA in the loop so that they can start to build what's necessary based on real life examples. And also this last one, Jamie doesn't do this, by the way. Jamie does not survey employees to meet their needs. We recommend you survey the employees to meet your needs, because the more we hear about the next generation of workers that are coming into the space, right, Jamie?
Yeah.
Big deal. It's a big deal to be able to say, hey, we want to know what you need as far as employment. So definitely let us know. How can we assist in this? And in fact, I'm going to open up this poll and then we'll get to some questions from you guys. I would like to continue the conversation. I want to participate in a GSA flexible workspace pilot for your agency. If you want to do that, check that. Connect with me about short-term space. We will connect you to GSA about the short-term space. If you want one less in the year, you have an immediate need for flexible workspace. You can answer as many of these as you want. I'd like help with my agency's plan for flexibility or something else. Please contact me. And then the bottom part is, when do you want to do it? Immediately, next 30 days, or in October. We know why we're asking that question, because we're up against fiscal year end right now. We're in Q4. Can you believe that? Can anybody believe that we are in fiscal year Q4 in 2022? It's just amazing. All right, so we're going to open this up for participation. And I'm going to go back to a couple of the questions up in the beginning to make sure we answered those. Factual information, we got that. Cost efficient manner. Carrie from HHS, improve workspace capability in a cost efficient manner. I'm hoping we got to that one. Anybody else got any questions before you can open the Q&A? You can drop them in the chat. Doesn't matter to me. Just make sure you ask them, and we'll make sure we get you there. Let's see. We're asking a question about how do you address lease? This is from Erica at IHS. How to address a lease renewal with telework space requirements? What is your recommendation for addressing a lease renewal with telework space requirements, Jamie?
Is that for me?
Yeah, it's for you.
Okay. I think that's what's going to happen when a lot of leases get renewed. There's going to be requests for a portion of those leases to be converted to flexible space. And that flexible space can be for telework when they are there. It can be for different people have the ability to office two days a week, 3 days a week, whatever it is. And then hopefully some of the space will be asked to be in flexible turnkey workspace, where we would work with the landlord and with the agency and build out exactly what they want. And in answer to an earlier question, we're prepared to build a flexible workspace facility that would be multi-agency. And the only people who could be in that flexible workspace would be government agency people. So that it solves the problem of having to work into a commercial co-working as a government employee with the stuff that you're working on you don't want the public to see. We would be prepared to do a multi-agency flexible workspace. I think that's going to be a coming thing.
I agree. And that goes back to what James was asking from Department of Justice, with the method of where agencies can scale up and scale down, still have dedicated space, because they can't share the space with commercial companies, which you understand exactly what that is with what happened with FEMA, right? You built up the FEMA thing, and even just other tenants in the overall building started having a cow sometimes, right?
Well, it was blocked off. Nobody could go in there but FEMA, and the same with the VA that we worked with, and they'll be happy to give you references. But I do believe interagency flexible workspace will be one of the solutions that the government will execute in the future.
I could not agree more to that, and I really appreciate it. And if there's any other questions, any other things that are coming in, I saw Duran says excellent presentation, very engaging and informative. Duran, you can come back. That's awesome. Appreciate that. Appreciate you being there. All right, so we do want to get you out of here. Hopefully this was beneficial. We have 8 folks that said that are involved in this. So we're going to end this poll. We appreciate that. You will get contacted by Jamie today to set up a time for that either immediately or in the next 30 days or in October. It doesn't matter. As long as we get that on the calendar for you, we'll make sure that Jamie is in touch with you for that. You will get also today, you will get a recap email and have a link to the video for what we just did, the presentation, the FEMA white paper, all the supporting documentation that we talked about today, as well as scheduling those agency assessment meetings for that pilot is exactly where we want to get you to go. And Jamie, awesome job as usual. Great to see you again. And here's Jamie's contact information so you can reach out to him directly. And we have Leticia says, thank you. You are welcome. And we appreciate you being here, Jamie, as well as the rest of you folks. We know you have a lot of things to do. Enjoy the rest of your summer while you can. Wow, we're almost into August. Can we believe? Oh, my goodness. It's insane. Anyway, so really appreciate Jamie. Any parting comments before we let everybody get out of here and get some real work done?
Well, I hope that we educated you on a potential solution in your flexible workspace environment that I know many of you want to bring to your agency. So we'd love to have the opportunity to chat with you and help you look at this as one of the solutions.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us for this GovBrief, and we will see you next time. Appreciate it.